Nobody told you the truth about self-improvement. They sold you the big dramatic reset. The Monday restart. The 30-day challenge with the countdown timer. Most people who buy into that quit by week 2. Not because they lacked discipline. Because a loud start almost always ends the same way. What actually changes a person is quiet. It is slow. It is boring to watch from the outside. In 2003, the British cycling team had not won a single Olympic gold medal in 100 years. 100 years. Not one gold medal. Complete irrelevance on the world stage. Then a coach named Dave Brailsford arrived and did something that looked almost too small to matter. He didn't rebuild training from scratch. He improved everything by 1%. The bike seat became more comfortable. They switched to different tires. They brought special pillows to hotels so athletes slept better. They even studied which soap reduced illness by the most margin. Every single detail. 1% each. 4 years later, the team won more than half the gold medals at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. This is not a story about cycling. Small consistent actions compound into something you will not recognize after a year. 9 habits today. Not magic pills. Just percentages. Split across 3 areas: body, mind, and character. Because a person is not just physiology. Not just cognition. It is all 3 running together. None of these will change your life in 7 days. That is the good news. It removes the pressure completely. Pick the simplest one available to you right now. Do it 21 days. Then add the second. Let's go. Not figuratively, the foundation of everything. Literally. In 2017, neuroscientist Matthew Walker published a book called Why We Sleep. It became one of the most cited pieces of research in behavioral science that year. Walker found that after 17 hours without sleep, cognitive performance drops to the equivalent of a blood alcohol level of 0.05. After 24 hours, it reaches 0.10. Legally drunk. From just staying awake. If you train hard but sleep badly, the training produces almost nothing. Muscle recovery happens during sleep. Growth hormone releases during sleep. The brain clears metabolic waste during sleep through a system called the glymphatic system, which activates mainly at night. People who chronically undersleep age faster. Not as a metaphor. Skin, blood vessels, cognitive function. All of it degrades measurably and faster. I used to game until 4, 5 in the morning. Every night. 4 years. I genuinely thought I had trained myself to need only 5 hours. I thought that made me tougher. What was actually happening was slow reaction time, destroyed mood by noon, the dumbest decisions I look back at and cringe. 1 month of consistent sleep and I felt like a completely different person. No supplement, no program. Just sleep at the same time every night. The body runs on circadian rhythms. Fixed bedtime. Melatonin releases at the right moment. Recovery begins at the right moment. When you sleep at random hours every day, the body is in constant chaos. 8 hours at a fixed time for 2 to 3 weeks and you will feel the difference. Start here. Pick a time. Hold it even on weekends. 2 to 3 weeks. Then tell me what changed. The body was built to move. Joints, muscles, ligaments, cardiovascular system. All of it functions correctly only under regular load. When you stop moving, that is not a neutral state. It is degradation. Joints lose lubrication. Muscles weaken. Blood vessels lose elasticity. In 2019, a study from King's College London tracked over 1,600 adults over 10 years and found that sedentary people had measurably shorter telomeres, the protective caps on DNA that determine biological aging. The people who moved regularly had telomere lengths 9 years younger than their sedentary peers. 9 years. From movement alone. I am not talking about the gym 5 times a week. Any movement you enjoy. Swimming, cycling, football, walking. The body doesn't ask which sport you chose. Mood improves. Endorphins and serotonin. Energy increases because mitochondria begin working harder. People who move regularly look younger than their age. I grew up not doing structured exercise. Gaming, streaming, sitting. The first time I committed to just walking an hour a day, I thought it would be boring and useless. By week 3, something had shifted. My energy by afternoon was completely different. No more post-lunch crash. My mood was more stable. I didn't change my diet at that point. Just walking. 1%. A 2020 Stanford study found that walking specifically increases divergent thinking, the kind of thinking that produces creative ideas, by an average of 60%. Start with what you will actually do. I had digestive problems for years, starting young. At some point I was simply forced to eat properly, not from wanting to be healthy, from necessity because I felt terrible daily. When I changed the way I ate, the difference in how I felt was not gradual. It was immediate and obvious. In 2015, researchers at the Salk Institute discovered that the gut contains over 100 million neurons, more than the entire spinal cord. They called it the enteric nervous system. The second brain. The gut and brain communicate constantly through the vagus nerve. What you eat directly affects your mood, your anxiety levels, your cognitive clarity. Not indirectly. Directly. 90% of serotonin, the neurotransmitter most associated with mood stability, is produced in the gut. Not the brain. I had the worst diet on the planet for years. Energy drinks for breakfast. Fast food twice a day. 0 vegetables. My mood swings I blamed on stress. They were mostly diet. A nutritionist gave me one rule to start. Just one. Add 1 real vegetable to every meal. 2 weeks later, sleep better, mood better, without changing anything else. Sleep, movement, food. They are not separate from each other. They are one system. Bad sleep craves sugar and fat. Poor food kills energy to move. No movement worsens sleep. Start in one place and the rest follows. Not immediately. But it follows. The first 30 minutes after waking are the most valuable time of the day. Most people give them immediately to someone else's algorithm. You open your eyes, you pick up the phone, news, messages, social media. Your head is already someone else's. It is already reacting to someone else's agenda before you have had a single thought of your own. A 2021 study from the University of British Columbia found that people who checked their phones first thing in the morning reported higher anxiety throughout the entire day. Not just in the morning. All day. The anxiety carried forward. 30 minutes are yours. Coffee. Silence. Your own thoughts. Looking out a window. Writing something down. If you feel anxious without your phone for 30 minutes in the morning, that is itself information worth sitting with. The first 3 days without the morning phone were genuinely uncomfortable. Day 4, something shifted. Actual original thoughts, not reactions to things I had seen. The brain in the morning has lower prefrontal cortex activity, closer to a creative, generative state. Insight happens naturally if you give it space. Run the experiment. 1 week. You will see it yourself. This is one of the habits hardest to return to if you have lost it. Especially now. The brain adapts to fast image changes. Then a book page feels unbearably slow. Researchers at the University of Sussex in 2009 found that just 6 minutes of reading reduced muscle tension and heart rate by 68% more effectively than a walk, music, or a cup of tea. But the deeper value is the type of thinking a book trains. Slow, sequential, deep. You hold context across pages, build arguments in your head, sit with complexity. This is what short-form content makes structurally impossible by design. I stopped reading for about 2 years during my streaming career. Something changed in how I thought. My arguments got shorter. My explanations less precise. I could feel becoming shallower. When I came back with 20 pages a day, it was like physical therapy for the mind. A 2013 study published in Science found that reading literary fiction specifically improved theory of mind, the ability to understand other people's emotional states, more than any other reading format. When you read about another person's inner world, you train your ability to understand people different from you. 30 minutes. Start tonight. The brain builds new neural connections when you learn something new. Connections that go unused gradually fade. The brain optimizes for whatever you actually do. In 1998, neuroscientist Eleanor Maguire at University College London studied London taxi drivers. Navigating the city's 25,000 streets had physically enlarged the hippocampus compared to non-taxi drivers. The brain does not just use experience. It is reshaped by it. I met a professor once, over 90 years old. Still teaching at a university. Completely sharp, fast, full of humor. And people in their 70s who could barely process their surroundings. The difference was not genetics. It was whether the brain kept working. Learning doesn't need to be utilitarian. A new language, a new instrument, a new hobby, anything that forces the brain to work in an unfamiliar mode. I started learning Arabic at 23. No professional reason. Just wanted to. Something about wrestling with an entirely different grammatical structure changed how I thought in English too. The bilingual advantage: bilingual people show measurably delayed cognitive decline in aging. You can reshape the structure of your own brain through what you choose to learn. Not as a metaphor. As physiology. Seneca wrote about this almost 2,000 years ago. That most people spend their lives on things they don't need, with people who drain them, on obligations they accepted for reasons they cannot reconstruct. Time is the only resource that cannot be recovered. Money can be earned again. Health can be partially restored. Time, never. Each yes to something you don't need is a no to something that actually matters. That is arithmetic, not philosophy. When I first got a platform, I said yes to everything. I thought saying no was selfish. The projects I actually cared about got whatever energy was left over after everything else, which was basically nothing. Then I understood, every yes like that is a no to something real. The relationships that were real survived the no. The ones that didn't survive it weren't relationships. A 2018 study from UC Berkeley found that people who found it hard to say no had significantly higher rates of decision fatigue, stress, and were more susceptible to manipulation. The inability to decline is not a kindness. It is a vulnerability. The most significant decisions came from removing things. Not adding. Removing. If you don't know what drives you, something is driving you that you are not aware of. This directly affects which decisions you make, how you respond to stress, why you repeat the same mistakes across different contexts. In 2014, organizational psychologist Tasha Eurich ran a 4-year study with nearly 5,000 participants. She found that while 95% of people believe they are self-aware, only 10 to 15% actually are by measurable criteria. I performed confidence to avoid feeling inadequate. I was the loudest person in any room because somewhere underneath I was terrified of being overlooked. When I saw that pattern clearly for the first time, something changed. Not the pattern immediately. But I had a choice I didn't have before. You cannot change something you cannot see. A good starting tool, the Enneagram. Not as a personality type label, as a map of what drives behavior at the level below conscious choice. The book called The Wisdom of the Enneagram is one I recommend without reservations. Stop for 2 seconds when something triggers a reaction. Ask, why did I respond that way? That is already the practice. Over time you start seeing repeating patterns. Once visible, they can be changed. Seneca reviewed his day every evening. What went well? What didn't? Why? Not self-flagellation. Analysis. 3 minutes. In 1945, psychologist Kurt Lewin proposed what became known as the action-reflection cycle. Learning and behavior change requires alternating between action and deliberate reflection. Without the reflection phase, the same patterns repeat indefinitely. When a thought exists only in your head, it is blurry and emotional and inconsistent. When you write it down, it becomes defined. You can see where the logic holds and where it breaks. Marcus Aurelius kept a journal his entire reign as Roman emperor. The notes that came to us as meditations were never intended for publication. A private tool for thinking clearly, written by the most powerful man in the world for an audience of one. Leonardo da Vinci left behind over 13,000 pages of personal notebooks. Not for anyone else. For thinking. I started journaling about 2 years ago, skeptically. Writing things down changed the quality of my decisions. I also found that writing intentions for the next day before sleep produced clarity I hadn't had when I fell asleep. Richard Wiseman at the University of Hertfordshire found in 2001 that people who wrote down their goals were significantly more likely to achieve them than those who only held the goals mentally. One paragraph. What mattered today? What do I want to do differently? That is the complete practice. Just do it every day. Sleep at a fixed time. Move your body in any form you enjoy. Eat food that runs the engine well. 30 minutes without your phone in the morning. 30 minutes of reading every day. Continuous learning through whatever genuinely interests you. Saying no to what isn't yours. Understanding your own patterns. A journal at the end of each day. The question was never knowledge. It was consistency. 1% is invisible day to day. After 6 months of consistent 1%, the compound is something you will not recognize. Pick the one that is most available to you right now. 21 days. Then add the second. Write in the comments which habit you are starting. And if you have already kept one of these, tell me which one. Tell me what happened. If this was useful, send it to one person who needs it today. That is the whole reason this exists.